I didn't know if it was me, All right. So we're going to get started here in a minute, and this is going to be recorded, and I just want to introduce April to everybody. She's up there in the corner, and we're going to be live streaming this out. So I really appreciate you guys being here, and a lot of this is going to be me talking fast. So if you have something, you have a question, please raise your hand, interrupt me, whatever you like to do. But in the meantime, if you could kind of mute your audio so that unless you have a question, we don't have a lot of interference. That would be really awesome. And if you forget, April will mute you. It's the modern day version of being shushed, right? Let's get muted. Somebody muted. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. April, are you ready? She's going to say, yep. All right. I'm going to hit the
recording in progress.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final session of the recovery series. I'm calling it Here's What I Know, just because here's what I know. And I've been doing this now for 20 years. And I just really wanted to share a lot of what's going on, a lot of what I know. I have been, coming out of the pandemic, I don't know about you guys, I'm still trying to sort it all out. I'm still trying to find my footing and kind of show up and be visible again. And so what I decided was I needed to just do something that was easy, that was fun, that I could just put out there and help people to know stuff. And then I could feel confident again. So honest, a little bit of transparency. That's why I started this whole thing. And it's really been fun for me to take what I know and really put it into this 4-part series that I think is really going to be helpful for all of you. What I want to do now is I'm going to share my screen, and basically for the next hour and a half, it's just going to be me talking. Now, if you miss stuff, don't worry, because we're going to send you the link on this. We're going to send you this in video form. And if you missed any of the previous workshops, because this is number 4 of the 4-part series, it's all going up on YouTube. And so you just head on over to my YouTube channel and you can find it over there. It's a 4-part series and it'll just take you through everything. But for today is going to be a lot of review. And then we're going to go into today's story, today's information that I want to tell you about. So before I do that, let me just head on over here. Let's see, where do I need to go? I need to go here. I need to go here and click this and share. All right. So here we go. Here's what I know. I'm going to share this with all of you. Here we go. Really simple, right? I did that on purpose because I just really wanted it to be very simple. Here's what I know. Advocacy series part 4. Now, one of the things I want to do though is I really want to tell you a little bit about who I am and the work that I do. And look, I'm wearing the same earrings. That's fun. So I wanted to just kind of tell you a little bit about me, who I am, and how I came to this place. So my name is Mary Jadwisiak. Some of you have been in some of my workshops before. Some of you know me quite well. And so I'm super happy to see you here today. For those of you that are streaming online, hello, I love it. I'm so happy that you're here joining us online. What I just want you to know is that, like, it's been almost 20 years that I've been in business as Holding the Hope. Started off with a different name, but doing the same work. And so you can see a lot about who we are at our website, holdingthehope.com. When the pandemic hit, we took almost everything that we were doing, and we took everything that we were doing and we just threw it up online. And we were the first organization in Washington that took, we're contracting with the state, and we took all of our work online and kind of proved that it could be done. And so a lot of people followed suit. And when we were doing that, we recorded all of our workshops. So what we did was we then created a catalog of workshops. And the reason that we were able to jump to online workshops so quickly is that about a year prior to the pandemic, Holding the Hope and another colleague of mine, Stephanie Lane, who at that point was working for the peer workforce development at the Washington State University, we kind of collaborated and put on an online conference. This was before online conferences were cool. And we recorded all of those sessions, and we added a whole bunch of materials to it, and we created the CARES Toolkit. And all of that is going to be available to you at the Peer Support Training Center. So if you go to the Peer Support Training Center, you'll find our on-demand catalog of lots of continuing education courses for peer supporters, as well as trainings for supervisors for peer supporters. There's 7-hour trainings, there's 4-hour trainings, there's free trainings, there's a lot of stuff on there for folks. And then the live trainings, if you click on this link, it will take you to basically the web page training site, the events page on the Holding the Hope website. And we have all of our live trainings coming up. Now, what we did this year was a little different. So what we're still doing it online. What we're doing is we're doing the same subject for peer supporters and for supervisors. This month, it's trauma informed. So we're doing trauma informed peer support and trauma informed peer supervision, so that everybody in the agency has the same information and is getting the same source material and has the same values and understandings around the subject. And then I talked about that conference that we recorded and put together and put out there, and that is our CARES Toolkit. And so I'll just click on this one for a minute and show you the CARES Toolkit. Oh, look, there's a video of me. And it's 12 different modules with speakers from around the country and subject matter experts talking about these various essential skills that every peer supporter needs. And what I love about this is that you can, once you buy it, you can log in and you can have access to all of these. We update them. You get the update without having to pay any extra. You own this for as long as you have a computer and you can log into it, right? Even then, you still own it. So you can log into this, and if you're just having some struggles around something, you can log into this and listen to something that an expert has to say about that subject. And then we also included in that lots of extra links for you so that you could take kind of a deeper dive on it. So this is what we did, was we just put it all in one place here at the Peer Support Training Center. And I just thought that would be easier than trying to figure out where do I go for this and where do I go for that? Just, it's all in one place. So, and so when we get to the end, I'm going to also tell you about a new product that we have called Recovery Alignment. But for now, I just kind of want to jump into this workshop that we do and the reason that I do the work we do. And the reason that I do this work that I do is because I really believe in recovery and I really believe in peer support. I named my company Holding the Hope. That's what we do for each other. And I love this definition of hope that I have, that somebody gave to me, and I carry it because it's so easy to remember. And it's just so real. And it's that reasonable expectation that things can get better. So when we're at our worst is when we have the most access to hope. And I love the lotus flower because the lotus is a beautiful thing. And if you look at what feeds that lotus and what's underneath that water, it's rooted in muck and mire. At the bottom of that pond is all the pond scum, all the muck, and all the stuff that hit the surface, floated down, and is dead and rotting at the bottom. That's what's feeding this lotus blossom. And I love lotus blossoms for that, because that's what happens to a lot of us, is that some of the negative things, we get to turn them into positive. We feed them and we feed on them, and we get nourished from them, and we come out something very beautiful. So I love this slide. It just seems to really capture who I am and here at Holding Hope and what the work that we do. Now we're at session 4 of this series, so it's kind of old, but if you, and you already know this because you registered, you're in the VIP room, you've got this. What I hope is that as you go through this, you'll think of a project in your mind that you might want to do. You'll kind of consider, if you don't already have a team together, you'll consider about what teamwork is, and then you'll do the homework. Every week I gave you homework, and it wasn't easy homework. It was big homework. It was like, what are your values, and do a SWOT analysis, and big stuff, so that you really feel. And the reason for that is because I just want you to feel, I want you to be successful and be confident in the work that you do. And once you do this homework, there's no way you cannot be confident in this, in either moving forward or walking away from whatever this issue is that you're dealing with. So that's what this is. And if you're just starting this series, right, and then I still hope that you go through and do the homework and get the best out of this that you can. We broke it down into 3 parts. Actually, it was 4 parts. The first part was just kind of an overview. Hey, here's who we are. Here's what we're doing. And then I had three phases to what I thought was the advocacy project. You've got the commitment to the project, an understanding of what is going on with that project, and then the implementation. And what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the implementation. Everything I do is infused in SAMHSA's guiding principles of recovery. And so when I think about recovery, I went to a workshop once, and it was a retreat, and the retreat master said, he was defining sanity, and it was like, if you can work, if you can love, if you can play, you're well. Get on the bus, go do your thing, go out and live in the world and be among all the other people that are living, working, and playing, and they all have issues. And so I loved that, and you can just see some slides later, and I'm going to talk about how I translated that. And so I translated work, love, play to purpose, relationships, and joy. So, which just overlaid perfectly with these 3 things: commitment, understanding, and implementation. So today I'm going to talk about implementation, and I'm going to talk about bringing joy to that implementation, and just some simple things that you can do to work with that. And here are the slides that I just referred to, right? And so what does that translate to? Purpose, relationships, and joy. As work, love, and play is just my favorite. All right, so the first week, we went through and we talked about what is advocacy. And I spent some time defining different types of advocacy, what it was about. I talked about the different places and types of advocacy that you could have, like if you were a self-advocate or a peer case advocate, or you were an independent paid advocate. All of these different types of advocacy work. So it's important to know what it is that you're doing so that you understand how to do it. And then, but to all of these, there were some principles that were pretty clear, that were relevant and inherent in each one of those, or actually not so much, maybe not inherent, but required. If you're going to do certain types of advocacy, you're going to need these principles to guide you as you go through it. And we spent a lot of time talking about those principles of advocacy. This is now week 2. And the homework for that was really, maybe that was week 1. It was week 1. But the homework was to know yourself, right? You got to know who you are and what you're bringing into this. Oftentimes we pick projects to advocate around because they're important to us, because we're mad as hell, because we see a huge injustice, or we experienced a huge injustice. So what I want you to do is to really look at, who am I and why does this so impact me? So identify your top values, identify your superpower, and create a statement. And so and I gave you an example of that. And my statement is escaping me right now. I can't remember it, but I am wow, I can't remember it but anyway, I'm determined to empowering myself and others now. And so there it is. I think it has to do with grateful and joyful and determined. So this is just, oh, here it is. I'm a joyful, kind, inspirational woman, gratefully determined to empowering myself and others now. That's my statement. So it took me a long time to get to that, and it was a really expensive class that I took. So I give this to you. Just really spend some time and get to know yourself. So that was the first week that I asked you. And then the second week, we looked at the first phase of this whole process, and that is commitment. When you come into this thing, there's a couple different ways to come into something that you want to advocate around. You could just come in mad as hell and throw your weight around and start yelling at people. That's one way. It's not the most successful way, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes you might get what you want in the beginning, like some little thing, but you lose a lot along the way when you do that. So if you're looking at doing some commitment, if you're looking at doing some advocacy work, you really need to make a commitment to yourself. So you need to make a commitment around who's the leadership on this project. We don't do this alone. You cannot do a big advocacy project. It's just not something you're going to do on your own. And it's not even, maybe you could do a small one, but it's really not helpful to do it on your own, because I don't know about you, but my mind is a bad neighborhood. And so I get in there and I start thinking about stuff, and I think I'm right, and I have this perspective, and it's usually wrong. So the more people that I have around me that can reflect back to me, I can hear myself talk and go, wow, I really sound like a jerk, or wow, I really sound smart, whatever it is. It's important to have people around you. And it's also important to think about, am I willing to lose on this? How will I know when I'm done? This is the most important thing. How will I know when I'm finished with this project? What is it that I want to complete? And so that I know I'm going to, and then what exactly is it that I want to do? And why? And these are really important questions for you to ask yourself, because advocacy is not easy. And you need to be able to kind of go back on these and say, wait a minute, this is who I am. This really violated my value of community, or this really violated my value of dignity. I guess I'm willing to lose to some degree, but if I do, then I'm going to have to do something else. And you really want to know what is it and who you are. And then you also want to understand that the people that you're having a conversation with on the other end of this issue, or the other people involved in this issue, they also have a commitment. They have a commitment to their jobs, right? They have values that they bring to their work. They have values, and the system within which they work has values. And so you have to understand that you have your commitments, you have who you are, and so do the people that you're going to interact with in this encounter, in this advocacy adventure. Then so you have to know all this. And so you have to build a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. And so that was kind of that first part of commitment, is understanding who you are, understanding who they are, and then really understanding, does this project align with your values? Because you can figure that out because you know what your values are now. And you need to understand, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Because somebody's going to ask you that. And you need to be able to understand that yourself. It's not just it's not a Lifetime movie that that you can just have the answer on. This is an important thing. And is this the rock you're willing to die on? So when we come to these first few things around commitment, one of the things I want to tell some stories around different advocacy efforts that I've been involved in. And there was an issue that came forward that people brought forward to me just in a general conversation. And it had to do with hospitalization, and it had to do with people transitioning out of the hospital, and I was given information that people were not able to transition out of a mental hospital. And I'm like, I wonder why that is. So as we began our advocacy on this project, I'm pretty good at what I do. And so I immediately got us an appointment with some larger people, some people. And I think the other person I was advocating with is also very good at this. And she might have actually gotten the appointment, and I just kind of showed up. So So we had an appointment with the person in charge, like the person in charge of all hospitals across the state. We had an appointment. And it was very clear that our advocacy styles were different within the group. There was factions within the group at that point in time. We had just met. We didn't really know each other. And we all had different approaches. And the person who was in charge of hospitals all over the state was very kind and listened to all of it and gave us some really important information. And so in my mind, I went with, okay, what's next? And but other people were like, no, fix this. We don't care what your excuses are. You have to fix this. It's very different approaches, very different perspectives, very different levels of commitment. You can point out a problem and just say, hey, you fix this. Or you can point out a problem and say, is this really a problem? Do you need help fixing it? How can I help you with this? And either one of those might be the right approach, but it's important to be able to come together and be aligned in how you're doing this. So, so these are questions that you want to ask yourself before you walk in the room with the meeting with the person, right? So then our December homework was about putting together a team and talk to them about the issues that you commit with, that you're the commitment. Talk about the issues that you're upset about. And then go through that commitment slide and ask them the same question. And if you can't put together a team, or it seems like, oh, this is just kind of a one conversation I want to have with my boss, have somebody that you can do bookends with, where you talk to them before you go in, and you talk to them after you go in. And so you have somebody that you can prep with, and you have somebody that you can debrief with. Just having another voice and another brain in the whole process is going to be really helpful. That was your December homework. Pull together your team. Make sure that your values and your approaches and your commitment levels align. So then we went to the next week, which was understanding. You got to understand what it is, where you are, what's the process. And so what do you got to do? You got to understand the history of the problem. Every problem, okay, very few new problems. Very few new problems. And so if there is a new problem, it's based in an old problem. And so understanding the history of the problem and understanding the history of previous attempts to solve that problem, really critical. So that's why kind of sometimes you'll see somebody new come in and they'll just go, charging forward like, this is completely inappropriate. And you're all just sitting there going, yeah, it is. We agree. Let's see if you can make some headway on it. Because sometimes new people can make great headway because they don't even know the barriers are there. And people who've been around for a while, they know the barriers are there because they broke their head on those barriers a few times. So know the history of the issue and be able to help other people and know your barriers and know their barriers. So this is really important. The other thing you need to really understand are the politics around this particular issue. There are a lot of them. And the other things is to understand the power structure and who's in charge and why are they in charge? What are their values? And what are their professed values and their actual values? So, you're not an advocate very long before you really understand that money is what drives every system always. And so really understand, how does that work? And is this person who's in charge completely unable to do anything different because they simply don't have the resources to do it different? So there's just things that you need to know in order to be able to be effective when you do the next step. Now, there's some things that you got to be aware of at this point when you're starting to know what things are going on. It can easily devolve into gossip. I remember one time, and then the story goes, right? Because anybody who's been around for any length of time, you've got stories. The thing about behavioral health services in any system, in any state, is that it's a pretty small community. People who are in a place of authority now were not always. And so everybody works their way up the ranks. I'll give you, for instance, I was on the phone call with somebody who works at our state health care authority. And we were having a conversation. And then she said to me, you don't know this, but my best friend's husband. It's like, I know your best friend's husband? She goes, yes. And then she told me the man's name, and it was my son's best friend in grade school. So we had this wonderful conversation. How's he doing? Blah, blah, blah. And so it's just an example to me of that. People grow up in this system. And so the relationships that we have are really important. And gossip can be really toxic because that gives us just a very narrow perspective of something and somebody that isn't helpful. The other thing that I think you really have to be careful about are side deals and understanding, as an advocate, understanding when you're being placated. It happens every time. It's got to happen to everybody at least once, so you know how it feels, and you know, like, oh, I know what this is. I'm being placated. And then you can sidestep it. You learn how to sidestep it. And so then, the recovery principle that really stuck out for this one for me was relationships. It's all about relationships in life, and especially in advocacy. If you piss somebody off, they're never going to forget it. These aren't, especially if you did it out of malice. And so if you broke a relationship, it's in your best interest to repair that relationship. Because, as I just said, people grow and move up the ladder in their lives and in their work. So the other thing about relationships is, I love this line. It's like, you will be lied to. That's just the truth. It's not always intentional. It's not always malicious, but it always happens. So you just have to figure out who's lying and make sure it isn't you. And then you can move forward. But just understand that in this interaction, somebody somewhere is going to lie. It sounds really caustic, but that's just what I know, right? This is what I know. So this is your homework for week 3. This is a big one, is to make a flow chart and put together the names of the people who can impact this situation. How is this? Talk to the people, get the history, all of it. Then I asked you to do a SWOT analysis of this situation that you have. Let's do a SWOT analysis. Well, what is that, you ask? And so I gave you a bunch of tools to do a SWOT analysis. And I gave you all these different approaches. It's the same thing, basically: internal, external, helpful, harmful, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So it's just really, it's a very simple tool. It's a lot of different ways to approach it. But it's really just another way to get all the information and put it in a perspective, and put it in a way that you can easily digest it. You can share it. You can anticipate what might be coming and what might not be coming. You can shore up areas where you might have a perceived weakness, because remember, this isn't necessarily your weaknesses. This isn't necessarily their weaknesses. We're doing this about you. So what are some areas in this situation that you might find is a real weakness for you? If you are advocating for something that you have experienced, it could be a weakness. It could also be a strength, but if you don't look at it and you don't take it apart and really assess it, you could get blindsided by your own reaction to something. So do a SWOT analysis. That's how we ended it, right? And so now we are at week 4, and I want to talk about implementation. We've got all this information. We've done a lot of background conversations. And so let's do some implementation. Open with inquiry. This is kind of really bleeds into the understanding. None of these are like cut and dried. They all kind of bleed into each other back and forth. But I want you to understand, do you know how in a gear thing like this, it's always the tiniest gear that is the one that really causes the most motion, because it's this little thing here that moves the medium one that moves the big one. So if the little one is moving, well, that's important. So you have to know what you don't know, and what you don't know could have a significant impact on what you believe or what you assume. So you have to kind of figure out, what don't I know about this? You have to assume that there are obvious gaps in your knowledge. Even though you think you know it all and you might know a lot of it, there are things you don't know because you're not in the other person's shoes. So you need to go to the source of the issue, and you need to confirm what you believe. Is this the truth? Is this truth, or is this somebody else's perception that they handed down to me? That's really important. And that's part of your implementation. So what this does is a couple of things. It lets folks know that this issue is on the table. And it lets folks know that you're in the mix, and so they're going to immediately kind of start figuring out, what does that mean for them? So you kind of have to go back and repeat those understanding steps. Once you know what you know, and once you figure out whether what you perceive is true, 100% accurate, complete, then you can go, if you get new information, you got to go back and say, okay, this is new information. How is this going to impact the power structure? What is this going to do for us politically? What's right? Lots of questions. So you really start because I cannot even tell you how many times I have called somebody up or sent somebody a message and said, hey, this is the way it is, and I just am really upset about this, and I just don't think you should do this, and I think this should be fixed. And they come back and say, thank you for contacting us, and what happened really is da, 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 da. And then I sit there and I look really sheepish, and I'm like, oh, sorry. Sorry. And other people will say, you know what? We love that you're an advocate. Mary, we love that you're in there digging around, looking at stuff and holding us accountable. I like those people. We're still friends. I don't know what they say behind my back, but when they say it to my face, it makes me feel better. And so, that anytime you step up in public and you open your mouth, there's always a level of vulnerability that comes after that exposure. So I love it when they come back and say, yeah, you got this totally wrong, but we love that you're still in there swinging. Like, okay, thanks. I'll see you later. So just know that is bound to happen at some point or another. So then, we got to communicate your concerns. There's a couple different ways you can do this. You can do what I just did, like call somebody up. The other day I made an assumption. I thought, you know what, I got to get to the bottom of this. I called somebody up and I just was like, hey, can we, and everything was fantastic. And they were super excited to hear from me. So that was just me shooting from the hip, which is an option. But I got to say, I kind of went through a lot of stuff and I should have gone through more. But anyway, so you got to express your concerns and then express your solutions. Here's what I will tell you. Never present a problem without a potential solution. I don't care if it's to your spouse, if it's to your landlord, if it's to your employer, if it's to a policymaker. If you're coming forward with a problem, have some solutions in hand that you would be willing to work on to implement. So you're gonna state that problem. Let's start with you're doing this in writing. This is important because what it does is it gives people an opportunity, and it's kind of respectful in that you're not putting people on blast in public at a public forum. You're not yelling at folks. You're giving them a specific in writing. Here's my concern, and here's what I'm asking you to do to fix it. And you give people time and you assume positive intentions. Those are hard things because I always assume people are real jerks and they're just trying to screw us all over. It's hard, right? And then when you're doing this in writing, use the carbon copies very judiciously. Again, you don't want to CC somebody's boss unless they've already told you no and they've done so badly. And you're just like, you choose not to participate with them anymore, and you're going to escalate this. I use the CC, and I say this as a person who has learned over the time, the CC is really powerful. It's super powerful. And so, it can be really effective. But it depends on your concern. It depends on the issue, and it depends on the people involved. So be judicious. Expect the rejection. People are going to tell you no, especially if you're calling them out. That's their first response is defensive. I mean, think about it. If somebody calls you out, your first response is defensive. That's why I'm telling you, people are going to lie. Just be like, okay, expect it, and then have the next step ready and implement it. And not just like, I'm telling you, if you don't get what I want, I'm going to do this. Don't be that person, but just know that, be like, okay, I see that I can understand your perspective. So, but this is a really important issue to me. And so I'm going to ask you to reconsider it. Be something you do, or I'm going to, I would love to have a face-to-face meeting with you to discuss this. That's something you could do. I would like to invite my lawyer into this conversation. That's something you could do. Or I'd like you to meet with my whole team, whatever it is that you want to do. Have that second step ready so that that's not just, it's not like you're going, here's the problem and you should fix it. And then you walk away. That's not helpful. That's not helpful at all. And so what you should say is, here's the problem. Here's what I think is the solution. You don't like that solution? Could we have a conversation about what solution you think might work? And do we agree that this is even a problem? Because it could be, maybe we don't even agree that this is a problem. So the other way that we could communicate our concerns is to set up a face-to-face, is to begin either on the phone or in person to have a verbal conversation about an issue. And it's private. Always start off private. Have an outline of the problem and the requested solution in writing that you can present and say, here's what we have. It's not a list of demands. It's a outline of your concerns and some possible solutions. And then listen. This is the most important part. Just sit quietly and wait for them to talk, and take notes about, with regards to the issues, the piece of paper that you just gave them. Take some notes. Who said what? When in the meeting did they say it? And what did each one say? I've been in meetings where I've done this. And then when they come back with a different version of that meeting, I could be like, that's not what my notes reflect. I was, my colleague and I kind of have the same notes that so also the other thing is, you don't want to go into a meeting alone. You always want to have a kind of your teammates come with you so that they can see that this is something that you're taking very seriously. And never leave one meeting without setting a date for the next one. That's just a real indication. Like, okay, so you're going to do this. I'm going to do this. You're going to summarize the conversation. You're going to summarize the decisions that were made. And then you're going to be like, well, when should we reconvene to continue this conversation? It's a great way of being assertive, in that this is not something you're just going to throw a fit and walk away from. This is something that you're going to have a conversation, and the conversation is going to continue. And at some point you might throw a fit, but you're still going to come back to the table and apologize for your fit and keep going. And they might get a little pissy, and then you're going to give them space to do that, because we are human beings having a conversation, and that always gets messy. So we're just going to give ourselves space and time for this, and we're going to continue. This is not something that's going to happen just, you're not going to leave every meeting with everything resolved. That would be awesome. That is probably not going to happen, especially if it's a really big issue that involves policies and procedures, or it involves a big system issue, or like it involves a hospital issue, or it involves HR policies, or it involves other people, other agencies, other departments. Just know that the chance that somebody's going to say, oh my God, you're brilliant, and we so are grateful that you're doing this. Come on, we're going to do it together. We're going to do it next week. It's on the agenda. The executive director has already approved everything. That's not going to happen. That's what we want to have happen, but that doesn't happen often. So that's why we want to be willing. That's why the whole knowing piece is understanding that, knowing the politics, knowing the laws, knowing the procedures, all that kind of stuff. We want to know that stuff. And then once you have that conversation, you want to go back and communicate that information with your team and your supporters. What did they say? You're going to debrief that meeting, and you're going to kind of crack it open, and you're going to and then you're going to start talking about not just what was said, but why do you think they said it this way? Why do you think they said it that way? Do you think that's the truth? Like, what did you notice about this? Were they nervous when they told you, or did they feel really sincere? You can tell when people are lying to you. Were they lying to you, or were they telling you the truth and just as upset about it as you were, or just really didn't see it as an issue? So at that point, then you got to think about, is this going to require some escalation? And then you got to figure out, well, what does that look like? So I've escalated some stuff to a national level. I absolutely have. I've thrown out some, I've been involved in situations that were on a national level where we in Washington state consumers were pitching a fit in a very organized manner, and we were pitching a fit in front of the entire nation. So I did that. I'll tell you the whole story at some other time if you want. But we tried conversations and we got nowhere. We got lied to, and so we were like, "Now this is not something we will tolerate being lied to." And so we took it bigger, and it was and we got our way. We won, but it took a minute. So you have to have a conversation. It's not something that one person on the team can just go off and do. It's really has to be a coordinated effort if you want to be successful. And then you have to understand that there's folks on the other side are saying the same thing to their teams, that they're having a conversation and they're doing an assessment and trying to figure out if you're going to escalate it, and if so, how can they mitigate it, and how can, is this going to cost them their job or not? So it's really, again, be careful. It's not just about you have to be really serious about, if you're going to escalate something, then this is something that you, again, go back to the beginning, kind of go through this whole process again and figure out, what do we know? What do we not know? What are some assumptions that we've made? What's new information? How do we do this? But the bottom line is does that rejection or non-resolution have merit? Are they right? Sometimes, right? Sometimes they are. And so in this particular issue that I talked about, where some advocates and I here in Washington state, it caused a bit of a stir. Quite frankly, I could understand the pickle they were in, but they could have fixed it and they didn't have to lie to us. Right? They stood in front of a public forum and lied to all of us at once. And that, for me, that was absolutely unacceptable. So they didn't think that through well. And so that particular rejection did not have merit. It was understandable as to how it happened, but it did not have merit. So we continued forward and we supported each other. And those are the kind of places that I learned a lot of this stuff. So, if I wish I could have gone back and done all this, but what I think is really the most important thing is, after these communications, is to wait and do this thing, that's this whole self-regulation thing. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I get caught up in an issue like this, where I really feel like I'm right and everything else is wrong, I get really animated and I get really ramped up. So we need to let the emotion dissipate. We need to let the information, the facts, stand and let the emotion dissipate, so that we can go back and have a second look at it without the emotional charge and have some decisions with our team. And then we choose, like, are we still going to stay an ally in this? Are we still going to work with this particular agency to fix this problem? Or are we now on opposite sides of this? We came forward saying we wanted to work on this together. Is that still possible? And if so, how? And so we just need to wait, breathe, regroup, and move forward from there. Time is not your enemy on these things. There's still plenty of time for things to get resolved. Even though it just might not seem like you're resolving an issue, you really are making progress. This is why it's so important to understand the history of what progress has been made on this issue, because folks might think, well, we've already fixed this. We've been dealing with this for a long time. Have you? Have you really fixed it? I don't think so. So I'll give you an example. When I was the mental health ombudsman here in Clark County, we worked with people to help resolve complaints that they had with regards to their Medicaid mental health service provider. My very first complaint was with regards to the hospital wait times. 7 years later, my very last complaint was with regards to the hospital emergency room wait times. That was really discouraging for me. I was already on the edge of burnout. And so I'm like, holy shit. Oh, sorry. Nothing has changed, right? We're still 7 years later. This issue is still here. And everybody gives you different reasons as to why it's there. My skills obviously had sharpened, and my perspectives had gotten clearer, and my approach had gotten a little hardened. Like, this is just wrong. This has got to stop. But it didn't fix anything, right? It's still, the issue was still there. So at some point, you just kind of have to go, and I'm sure it's there now. So the reasons might be different, but the issue is still the same. And then it's really important to go back and stay true to your values. If you find yourself saying, you know what, I should just go in there and do X, Y, and Z, and that's not in alignment with your values, don't do it. Just don't do it. If you want to start like a gossip campaign about somebody, just don't do it. If you want to start taking this personal and making it personal, then if that's the time to step away, because you can't do that. It's always personal, but you've got to be able to figure out a way to take a step backwards, and just wait, and then come back, continue that conversation if you want. There are issues I have completely walked away from, really important issues. And I just am like, I can't do that. I did what I could on that issue, and it wasn't enough. And so I'm walking away. People know how I feel about it. If you ask my opinion, I will tell you, but I'm not going to get into a big giant advocacy movement around it, because I don't have the emotional energy for that anymore. So the other thing that could happen is that when you bring this issue forward, someone says, you know what, we agree 100%. We just don't quite know how to fix it. Would you be willing to work with us to sort it out? Well, yes, I would. Thank you very much. So you need to think about, is that something that, do you have the time and the energy to sit with them and help them sort it out? And are you willing to do that? Or do you just want to say, no, that's not my job. That's your job. Fix it. Either one is an answer. Either one is an option for you. And so I always choose the first one. Yes, absolutely. Let's work this out. This is how much time I have. These are how many meetings I can assign to this before I can't do any more. But let's start this conversation. And then there are sometimes, like I told you, that you just can't, it's not going to get resolved. And you just need to be able to summarize, here's how I feel about this, go on the record with it, and then park it, put it aside. And maybe, you come back to it later, and it's a year later, and you say, hey, you know what, this is still here, but there's been some changes that maybe now might make this a little bit easier to address. Do you think? Can we revisit this? So just keep coming back with the inquiry. Where are we on this? How's this going? Are we still working on it? I know you've got all new personnel. Is this still on the task list for folks, or is this still on the radar, or is it just in the dust bins of the previous administration? How do we figure this out? So, so these are some ways that you can stay true to your values. So then if we talk about this final, right? So then what's the recovery value, the recovery principle of recovery? If we, we're talking work, love, play, and we put that over to purpose, relationships, and joy. This piece has got to be fun. This piece is all about joy. Your recovery, where you are in your recovery journey is reflected in everything that you do. And so if you can bring joy to this work, be kind when you walk in those rooms, be kind, be gracious, have fun, be direct. I just think being direct is a really important thing. Don't make people try to figure out what it is that you're saying. Be direct so that they know exactly what it is. And don't be the liar, even though it might be really uncomfortable for you to acknowledge a truth. And even though it may undermine the position of it all, just say, you're right. You're absolutely right. And that's a good point. I still think it needs to be fixed, but that's a good point on your part. And don't lie about it. It just undermines everything. And it just puts your whole integrity in question, and then nobody wants to deal with it. So stay grounded. And one of the ways you can do that is by, bringing joy and leave joy behind when you go. And so that you have so people know you not only by your articulateness, your understanding of the problem, your ability to really perceive what started this, what it looks like now, and some ways you could fix it, or you're willing to acknowledge that your ideas probably wouldn't work in this current administration or in this current environment. Just be joyful and be kind. And I just think that is probably the biggest thing you can do as an advocate, because people will then be open to hearing from you. They're going to take your calls. They're not going to go, oh my God, it's her. I can't take another call from her. You don't want to be that person. You want to be seen as somebody who, yep, oh God, she's going to hold us accountable, but we're all going to be better because of it. That's the person you want to be. So this your final exam is just go do something. I don't care what it is, right? It's almost noon, and I know that this runs, I mean, it's almost 1, and sometimes I set these to go till for an hour, and I mean, I schedule an hour and a half, but I don't think we've gone an hour and a half on any of them. What I really just want you to do is to just go do something. And if you fail spectacularly, you're going to learn so much. And as long as you don't trash relationships, you're going to be okay, right? Even, but just go and do some inquiry. Find something that really upsets you, or if you identify an injustice that you really feel, how did this happen? How did this happen? How did we get here? That's a great question. And then you can begin to also determine how committed other people are to fixing a problem. If it's hard to make change, and people in the workplace are just going to be like, no, we are not changing this. This is the way it goes. We've been doing it this way forever. This is the way we're going to continue to do it. Okay, that's something to know. But your final exam is just to kind of go and do stuff. And I want to talk about, here at Holding the Hope, of course, I love these kind of projects. I do a lot of consulting with people, and, I'm happy if you have a conversation that you want to have and you're scared to death, you don't know how to do it, please feel free to contact me, and I'm happy to, debrief anything with you. I've showed you some of our other stuff, but I want to show you this one last thing that we have, and it's called Recovery Alignment, and it's a program to help employers have and create a recovery-based workplace so that your staff stay well. And we do an assessment. We do based on the Yale Recovery Inventory Scale. You do a quick inventory of your staff, little thing. I'm going to create a personalized report, really comprehensive report. We send back to you, and it gives you an outline of places where you could make some improvement, or make opportunities for you to infuse recovery principles into the work that you do. From there, you pick a project. We're going to support you through that project for the next 10 weeks. So it's about a 12-week project, and it's really a learning collaborative where a group of people go through it together. So if that's something you're interested in, just go to recoveryalignment.com, and we will, and you can schedule an appointment with me. And on this page, there's places in there you can click and schedule an appointment with me, and I will talk about it and see if it's something that really might work for your agency. Because it's really, I've done this a while now, and it doesn't necessarily fit for all agencies. So yeah. That's who we are. That's what we're doing. And I'm just really excited to be here. And I'm just wondering if anybody has any questions or comments, or has anybody been in any of the previous sessions and they've done their homework, and how did it feel? And yeah, just open it up, see what everybody has to say. Anybody?
Good morning, Mary. It's Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well. I think what you're saying is also well. And when I first started my advocacy, I came in like a wrecking ball, like bull in China shop, because I was exactly, how did this happen? How did we get here?
Yeah.
I advocate for those experiencing homelessness, and ended up homeless myself. And so when I saw what was going on in my community, I started in my outreach, which is Friends Without Homes, became a peer counselor, got a job working in the behavioral health field.
I
And
remember.
to this day, I'm still, how did we get here?
How did we
What is
get here?
going on? So I burned a lot of bridges. And when I walk in the door, it's a mixed feeling of, uh-oh, she's here. What is she going to do? And, oh no, we better mind our P's and Q's because she's going to hold us accountable.
That's it. Yeah.
It's a mix. So these things that, type of things that you're doing for people are so, I didn't really get a lot of the learning for advocacy. I was like, I am an advocate and I'm going, and I just got thrown into it.
Yeah.
So really going in and making those community, those leadership ties. And even if you did, mine are almost impossible to rebuild. So I just go out there and show them through my integrity, what I'm doing, that I'm still doing it. I'm still here. I don't have to meet with them anymore. They know who I am,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. And you can still have conversations with them and maybe create allyship and just be like, I know that I came in really strong in the beginning, and I hope that if you have issues that you think I might be able to help you with, that you'll consider working with me.
Yeah. And a lot
there's
of
things that we can still do to help, to kind of just really change the dynamics, right?
Yeah.
It's
And it
never,
helps to
it's
go
never
out
set in
there.
stone.
Like you said, just go out there, pick one thing and start doing it. And it's like the
Yeah.
Herbal Essence commercial. You tell one friend and you just need one wing nut to swing on you and follow you, and you're going. So
Yeah.
this is a really great, and even though I've started a long time ago, I still come to all these things so I can make sure that I remember where I came from and I brush up on my skills.
That's right.
So thank you, Mary.
You're so welcome. Anybody else?
Thank you so much. I have enjoyed this. Thank you for your commitment, Mary, and
Oh,
thank
you're
you
so welcome.
for your sharing your wisdom, Lisa. I really appreciate the way you laid it out with we are going to be lied to, and we are going to be placated. I get that, but here's where I'm at with it. What do you do when there's someone that you have to work close with that just lies to lie? Because I know you can't change anybody but you.
Right.
But what do you do in those kind of situations? How do you be a team player with a member on your team like that?
I would document everything. I just write it down. I just keep track of everything they say, when they say it, and who was around when they said it. So that if it came back to me, I could be like, no, this what, and then, you just keep track. Not because you want to cause trouble, but just because you want to protect yourself. Sometimes you just have to protect yourself. And one of the best ways to do that is to document everything. Just keep a little, we all got these things laying around, right? Just a little notebook.
Yep.
There you go. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's not like you're sending it to HR. It's just something for you to keep track of, for your own sanity and for your own self, and then, well, here's the other thing too, is if we just stay consistent in who we are and what we do and how we move forward, people know what to expect from us. And regardless of how they behave, we're still showing up the same. I think that's a really huge piece as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What else? It's really nice to see you guys again. So as I said, we're going to take these, we're going to put them up on, you'll be getting a link. And so you'll be able to watch these again, and you can watch some of the previous ones. And you'll get the slides and with all the links on the slides, and it's going to be great. And if you need me for anything, please feel free to call me or email me. I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Thank you, Mary. You're amazing. Have a blessed day.
Thank you,
Recording
Lisa.
stopped.
Thank you, Mary.
You're so welcome. I stopped the recording. So, hey, so I'm so glad to see you guys. It's nice to see faces. Sometimes I come out of the sharing my screen